Hi, you guys. How are you doing? This is Richard Sachs. I'm your host on Lost Arts Radio, and this is Lost Arts Radio Live that we do once a week on Saturdays. And this is a show relative to current events that are going on in the world. And obviously, there's a big one happening right now and affecting you anywhere on the planet that you are. I think I'm not sure about the effect on people in Antarctica, but pretty much everywhere else, and maybe including there, it's a big deal. And I know in America, where I'm sitting right now, we're under attack, and it's a pretty serious situation. It's not an invading army; it's an army that's already in the country, and it's probably in your country too. And it's part of this global cartel of rulers that's been working on this project to take over humanity for a long time. You know, and my studies and tracing it back at least the last few thousand years. And I think they're all excited that they think they're near completion of their project they've been working on for a long time. What it's about is shutting down freedom and unalienable rights. And you might think that that just applies in America, where we've got founding documents to the country that say everybody's got those rights. And the word unalienable is really important, because it means not just that the government graciously gave it to us, but that we have those rights intrinsically. They can't be taken away. They came from God and nature, and not government, not the UN, not the WHO, not the CDC, no organization like that. You have them. People would say when you're born. I'd say before you're born for sure. It's something that is permanent, and it doesn't matter whether your government recognizes them or not. Well, it matters, because strategically you have to be more careful in places where they'll just shoot you for asserting those rights, which is a lot of parts of the world. But even in America now, where supposedly we have those, the government is figuring, after many decades of being educated, in quotes, so that your common sense is gone and you don't know how to think anymore. That's the purpose of our educational system that we have in the U.S. apparently, and in a lot of other countries I know it's similar. And we haven't been taught about how a government's supposed to work, what its function is. Some people think there shouldn't be any government, but when you're in a world where other countries and cultures are possibly extremely hostile and would like to do unpleasant things to you, the function of your government is supposed to be to protect you from threats, foreign and domestic. In other words, outside invasions that there are lots of examples of in history, but also within your country, which Cicero talked about a long time ago, that being the major threat. That's showing itself now, and it's being in the guise of being so concerned about our health, right? It's a really bad joke, because I guess under a system of tyranny, the government does have to take away your rights for your own good to protect you from supposed threats. But where your unalienable rights are recognized, government can't do that ever, under any circumstances. The people in government, if they're legitimate and they really do care about protecting the people and doing their job, they can say, well, there's a big invasion coming, everybody really should stay in their house. But they can't order you to do that. And there's this illusion that there are executive orders on all levels of government in the U.S. that can say, well, we'll give your rights right back as soon as the emergency's over, and don't worry, we'll let you know when that is. But for now, you can't peaceably assemble. You can't get anywhere near other people. In fact, within 6 feet or 15 feet or whatever the current restriction might be. You can't buy or sell these things on our list because we decided it's not essential. And for your for your benefit, we're telling you you can't do that. None of this is legitimate. It's all illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's basically unacceptable even in countries where it's theoretically the law, because the government works for the people. And that's the whole idea. And that's their job, to protect the rights against all those threats. So it's the same with the military and the police and the sheriffs that work for government at different levels in the country, whether it's local, state, provincial, federal, international. Their job, and some of them, like in the U.S., they take an oath to, like the politicians do, to protect and defend, well, they say the Constitution, but really it's what the Constitution represents, which is permanent. The Constitution may not be, but the rights are. And they take an oath to uphold and defend those. And then they violate it in many cases right away. So we need to talk about that. It's really about the belief that whether or not government in any form can just declare an emergency and take away your rights. And you're supposed to think that is normal and legitimate, hoping that you forgot everything about what's real. And see, the thing is, logically, everybody would know that if the government in a so-called free country could just declare an emergency and say, well, okay, now you don't have any rights, but we're really sorry, and it's because this emergency is so bad, and they've got everybody miseducated, including the doctors and most of the medical personnel, about the germ theory, which was promoted by Pasteur a while ago, and many people say near the end of his life, I think it's true, he realized his interpretation of it was a complete mistake. As Béchamp, his contemporary, said, it's not the germ, it's the terrain. In other words, take care of your body, which we're not allowed to learn how to do right now, but that knowledge is still there if you look for it. Take care of your body, and these so-called invasive microorganisms are not going to bother you. Even ones like this one that was engineered in a laboratory as a weapon, and you're not supposed to know that, with U.S. funding, of course, in both countries. Even then, there are ways to defend against it, both by taking care of yourself, in general, detoxifying your body and building it up with the way that it's supposed to be taken care of, but also in the acute situations using things like silver and C and D3 and certain minerals and things like that that are also being banned as bad information now. It's because they're true and they work, and doctors who have tried them have said, wow, it works 100%, even with really sick people. When you see the authorities banning that information and saying they really care about you, and that's why they have to take away all your rights and destroy the economy. And see, the economy is not just a bunch of numbers on the stock market. If nobody can go to work, even if the government puts out a whole bunch of fake money, if there's no production, then the money doesn't buy anything. It's what happened in Zimbabwe and a lot of other places like that. The government ends up issuing $1 trillion notes, and they still don't buy anything, because you have to have a free market. And the whole premise of the communist, socialist, collectivist models is that they're going to control it, keep prices fair, and keep production going. And it's a total disaster every time. And the people who implement it know that it will be, because it always has been, and it has to be if you understand the principles it works by. So the other thing you can see as a goal is that the governments are lying about the extent of their latest weapon and say, well, it's just killing everybody, and the hospitals are overwhelmed, and everybody's just begging for help, and it's just, it's terrible, and everybody's dying. And then someone runs down to the hospital that they just described with a cell phone and takes a picture, and there's nobody there. What does that mean? And for most of the American citizens and people in other countries, I know it's really hard for them to imagine that media would lie that much, but that's what's going on. So I mentioned that sheriffs and police and military, or their counterparts in any country in the world, have a duty to protect the citizens, not to abuse them. And it's a deep concept, and in the U.S. at least it was codified into the founding documents. And there was at least a lot of sheriffs and police and military may not know what their real duty is. It's to protect the individual rights of the citizens and the physical well-being of the citizens as well by protecting those rights. And there's one really brave, well-known sheriff that wrote 2 books on that and has talked about it all over the country and in even other parts of the world. And he's still working on that. And so he's agreed, to our great benefit, to be here with us today for a brief show. This is going to be over in a flash because we have so much to talk about. And we could go 10 hours and not finish this subject on the show. But what I'm going to do right now, with my limited technological expertise, is to try to bring him on with us. I think this will work. Hopefully everybody have positive thoughts about this, and I think he'll show clearly. And in case I didn't mention it, this is our friend Sheriff Richard Mack, great American hero that is inspiring people now, and especially sheriffs and military and police and citizens, and started an organization called CSPOA that everybody needs to know about. Come on, Sheriff Mack. I hope this works. Let's see. Doug, are you able to send him a text and let him know that I'm trying to add him right now? Because the system is saying that he's unavailable, and I don't want him to be unavailable. He needs to join us. Let's see. So CSPOA stands for...
I'll send him a message.
Yeah, do that, please. Stands for Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. And it doesn't say Constitutional Sheriffs and Law Enforcement Officers Association, because not every law is in harmony with the Constitution or with the unalienable rights of humans. And it's very important that they are. And if the laws are unconstitutional, then according to the founders of the United States, they aren't laws. They're void. So I can't tell if Sheriff Mack has joined. Sorry, you guys. This is just being figured out in real time here. I'll keep trying. I'll do my best to tell you what we're going to talk about if there's a technical problem that makes it hard to get him on. Anyway, the idea is that the sheriff in America, and this is not just relevant to America, it's also relevant to other countries, because according to the founding documents of America, of the United States, everybody has the same unalienable rights from God, and not just depending on where you live. You could live, I mentioned Zimbabwe, where they had a little problem with the money situation. And the people in that country and every other country have the same exact rights. Yeah, I think I'm getting a phone call in real time from Richard Mack. Richard, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Oh, good. I tried to answer the Skype for some reason. It's not letting you? Yeah, because we keep trying to add you. We're live right now. Everybody's listening to us. And what happens? Does it show up on your screen, or what happens?
But call didn't show up, and then the second time I answered, and nothing happened.
Okay, Doug, you're the expert. Do you think he needs to start to reboot his computer, or what?
Yeah, we could try that, or we could just call him on the phone. Either way.
Yeah, we are. Now, we can call you on your phone and add you that way. Doug just reminded me of that.
Okay, I'm on Skype. I see a Doug Diamond.
Hold on, everybody.
Try adding him again.
Same way.
I can
Yeah.
turn on my landline.
Okay. Doug said to try you once more, so we're doing that now. Do you see anything showing up on your screen? This is real life radio, you guys. I hope it works out. Otherwise, we'll try him on the telephone and see what we can do. Yeah, it's still saying unavailable. So let me see if it will go to your landline here. You can text me your landline number on the cell phone to make sure I've got it right, too. No, I don't want everybody listening. I have to hide the screen. Just text me.
Well, let's start off this line. Let's be public.
All right. Okay, new phone 602. Okay, I think I've got it here. And we're going to add him. It's going to be worth the wait, you guys. I'm sorry that Skype has decided to give us a little bit of resistance here.
Okay, here I am.
You're back. All right.
Yes.
Really glad that worked.
Oh,
So technology is great when it's in your favor. Right? When it decides to work against you, it gets interesting.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was just explaining to people that the current crisis is not really about a virus. It's about whether you can just declare an emergency and take away everybody's rights. And I told them that, about your work and that about CSPOA that everyone should support. And so what I'd like to talk about in the really brief time that we've got is I'd like to make this a message to sheriffs, so-called LEOs, but they should be, peace officers rather than that, and even military. And I want to include people in other countries, and then in addition, what regular citizens can play a part in all this too.
Right.
So we can hear you.
You can't hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah, you're live.
When you first started this conversation, I was ready to tell you, yeah, it has me scared to death, but I'm not that scared of the coronavirus, but
Right.
I'm petrified that America has been destroyed from within, and that the political process is destroying our country. And two people gave us huge warnings about that. One was Washington, when he warned us that the two-party system would destroy our country. And sure enough, there's no question that the Democrats and Republicans are destroying our country.
Yeah.
I will say that my personal feeling is that the Democrats do it more than the Republicans, but they both do it.
Yeah, at the moment, the Democrats have the lead role, but I really have never been able to figure out why we need parties, because no matter what party somebody's in, it's the individual that matters.
Well, there's a few states that have it where judges and sheriffs do not declare a party because there shouldn't be. I
Okay.
don't see where anybody in public service should be loyal to a party, a member of a party. It's the same. If it's the same for a sheriff and judge, it should be the same for people who make the law,
Yeah.
or the president who enforces the law. Everybody should be beholden to the people only and not to a party. And the loyalty to the party has completely taken over. And the shenanigans that the Democrats have been pulling lately, to me, are just shameless and unforgivable and counterproductive to anything that would help our country. Then we come with the Republicans who refuse to address issues like innocent people being in prison and why are we funding abortion and so on and so forth. But anyway, the other one was Abraham Lincoln when he said, if that we will never be destroyed by an outside enemy if we ever falter and lose our freedoms. it will be because we destroyed ourselves. And I would like to say that to Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Charles Schumer, Mitch McConnell, and McCarthy from California. Can't remember his first name. And this blind loyalty to the party and to victory and to winning has just absolutely driven me crazy. And the socialism, again, the socialism, a little bit slower with the Republicans than it is with the Democrats. But nevertheless, both parties support socialism and are socialists.
Well, and the other thing is that a lot of the people in the country now don't remember what's wrong with socialism because it's been presented as where you get everything you need for free. And
Yeah.
it's basically a version of utopia, right?
Well, it's supposed to be, but the thing of it is, it's all about force.
Right.
I don't get to control my property. I don't get to control my family. I don't get to control my own life.
Yeah.
If I work, I don't get to enjoy the fruits of my labor. It's all controlled by the masses or by the government, and that's the thing. Socialism is forced upon you. I don't care if somebody forces capitalism on me necessarily, because if it's done honestly, and I admit that our form of government is geared towards being honest and fair. If it's done honestly, it's fine, because it's all about free markets and competition, and I can rise as far as I want because it's up to me, and I can try as hard as I want. But the thing of it about communism and socialism, it's forced, and this is what we have today, a forced democratic dictatorship. And these governors like Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, where she's forcing this on people, and they're willing to arrest people who are doing the most mundane, ordinary things in life, and that we have now come to that. And it's shocking to me that we have dictators like that in our states.
Yeah.
And some in Washington, D.C. And this is one thing that Trump and the Republicans have not come to terms with, and that is the force from the FDA or the IRS or the EPA, how they come in there and they force their regulations on people, and it's just amazing how much force they are willing to use on us. And
well, they've got this really clever system of de facto laws called regulations that don't have
of course. Yeah, and regulations and policies, and certainly stupid, and of course that's my adjective now, but my mom would never let me say that when she was alive, so I hope she's not turning over in her grave. But these stupid rules and orders, executive orders, do not supersede or become superior to my God-given rights as explained in the Bill of Rights.
Right.
For heaven's sakes. And this whole thing, Richard, and you really got me going here. But
good.
but this whole thing about I have to choose between being deathly sick or a slave, or being confined to my home and being confined to my own little area here. You know, in law enforcement, we used to put people on house arrest, and now they're doing that to us, and we expect everything just to be fine. And you go out, and man, if you have 10 people over to your house, the police are now knocking on your door.
Yeah.
I have a friend in Florida that happened to, and we have Sheriff Nichols who's standing for liberty in Maine, and yet we have Sheriff Cronister in Florida arresting a minister for having church services.
I remember, right.
Can we? Now I got to ask you a question. I want everybody listening to the program to grasp this question. Can we not agree in this country, the Democrats, Republicans, all of us of different races, atheists, whoever, I don't care. Can't we all agree as Americans that there's one principle of liberty that's sacred, that we will not violate, and you would think that that one could be religious freedom?
Right, which
not.
actually includes your whole life, doesn't it? Because
It does.
right now they're trying to make an exception because the medical field is above everything, and it's above freedom, it's above the Constitution.
Where did that come from? The other night, Tucker Carlson was asking the governor of New Jersey, where did you get the authority to do these things?
I remember, and he didn't answer it either, did he?
Well, that's above my pay scale.
Yeah,
You're the governor.
exactly.
There's nobody above you.
So that means the oath of office is above his pay grade too.
Yeah, he doesn't get that stuff. That's way above his pay stuff. Yeah, he doesn't get that freedom stuff or that promise. Okay, Governor, let me explain to you this way. If you make a promise in public and you swear in God's name that you'll keep that promise, and then you violate it, you committed perjury. That's perjury.
Yeah,
you committed a crime. But no.
Right. Yeah,
okay,
it's amazing.
Now.
Yeah, well, the energy is appreciated, and there are governors all over the country like that, and somehow they all got elected. Although, with the current system of elections, nobody can tell if any of them are accurate. I mean, the machines that they go through are owned by interests that are not in favor of freedom at all, and even before they used machines, there's a great book called Vote Scam USA from the 60s, and by the Collier brothers. You can still find it, and it explained way before voting machines. They were secret.
After I lost my third race, they both called me.
Oh, did they really? So
they called me and they asked me a few questions about my race, and they go, "You were had, Sheriff."
Yeah, they used to take the paper ballots into basements under armed guard, and they would have
kind of what happened.
Counting private.
A reporter came to town. Pat Shannon came to town and started calling people and seeing how they really voted. And after 100 people, I actually won from what he got from just polling people on phone calls.
Right.
And then he went down to the recorder's office and asked us to see the ballots because he was going to just recount them himself. And they told him they didn't have them anymore because they got wet.
Well, yeah, no, obviously that voids your rights if things get wet. So
right. He said that. He says, "Well, then let me see them."
Yeah.
And she literally said, "No, we had to throw them away."
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was my election.
We tried to save them to show you, but we just couldn't do it.
Yeah. I mean, they got also sopping wet that you had to throw them away. Why not just leave? Try to dry them off and.
But we'll try not to have that happen at the next election for sure.
You mean you can't see the hanging Chad now? What is it?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to make sure and have time to talk about is, I wish we had a few hours to talk right now. We might have to do a sequel or something. Yeah. But what's the difference between the office in the U.S., the office of sheriff, and the office of other so-called law enforcement people?
Well,
and I want people in other
chief of police.
Yeah, chief of police, and I want people listening in other countries to think how this applies to their country. We're not wanting to just talk about America only.
No, and that's true. When we talked before, I was just like really amazed that anybody would question people throughout the world whether or not they should all be free and independent and self-governing.
Yeah.
And that anybody asking that question kind of alarms me, saying, "Are you serious? You think that there might not be people in the world who should be free?" Freedom is for all of God's children.
Right.
It is a gift that He gave to us as soon as we were born. We have the right to breathe and to self-determination. And we have the right to grow and to exercise our beliefs and our according to our own conscience, and to pursue religion and family and happiness. And all of us have that right. And there should be no kings and there should be no dictators controlling me or attempting to control me. And as long as as long as I am not hurting anyone else,
Right.
Government must leave me alone, and that's in every country, every form of government, whatever it is. I could see a king being there or a queen in some places, as long as they're righteous and fair.
Yeah.
But these communist dictators that are still out there, and they worry me, and that they think that the people exist to serve them is a huge mistake and completely contrary to the principles of liberty.
Right.
And that's why, again, communism and socialism just do not jive with liberty, because it's government making decisions for me and my family and my life that I have no control over.
Yeah, they're just supposed to be protecting your freedoms, and they have a legitimate role to prevent you from taking away somebody else's freedoms.
Correct. Yeah, they can interfere then. And
yeah, but other than that, no.
But the difference between a sheriff and, say, you can even go with the FBI. The FBI should only have a very limited role in our constitutional republic. But Hoover got them just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and Hoover intimidated the politicians. And that's one time I agree with him. He should have been watching these crooks in Washington, D.C. But everything else, his monitoring of Martin Luther King and other activist figures is incorrect. And they've done it to me. And my dad was actually a retired FBI. But I actually requested all the reports that they'd ever done on me at one time, and it was pretty alarming. They did have to turn it over because of FOIA laws, but the difference between a sheriff and a chief of police, I would say most people in the country, unless you're in law enforcement or government, you don't know the answer. You do not know the answer. And so it's a real simple one. They have a lot of similarities. However, the chief of police is a bureaucrat. He's appointed by the town council or city council. And sometimes the town manager, who is not elected either. He's appointed. He's a bureaucrat. But and he has a lot to say in that. And the town manager has no authority whatsoever, but he has a lot of power. And they've been given too much in that. And then the sheriff, though, on the other hand, though, is what makes us a constitutional republic. The people choose our representatives. So the chief of police should be chosen, if there should be such a thing, should be chosen by the people, by the voters. The sheriff is the only elected law enforcement officer anywhere in this country. Every county has a sheriff except Alaska, Hawaii, and Connecticut. Connecticut actually voted the office out by a voter referendum that was totally supported even by the sheriffs. The 8 sheriffs of Connecticut were promised a big job, paying job elsewhere. So they
I was going to ask you how much they paid them to do that.
They did. They offered them big jobs, and they got rid of them. And the reason politicians don't want sheriffs around is because we answer to the people. We don't answer to them. This is really key here. The sheriff has no other supervisor or boss or at all except for the people who vote him in. And you go, well, how does he answer to 5,000, 6,000, 25,000 people? Well, he does. Yeah. And collectively, he answers to them, and sometimes he answers to them individually. So it is an amazing job, and he has a fine line to walk. But nevertheless, that is what makes us a constitutional republic. And the governor answers only to the people. And when Trump recently came out and said that,
in theory.
Yeah, in theory, yeah. It's supposed to be that way.
Yeah.
And literally the sheriff does answer to them, but sometimes the people don't know that they are in charge of the sheriff, and they don't know what the sheriff is supposed to be doing.
No, we're conditioned to follow orders no matter what.
Exactly.
So what's the and I'm sorry to move through so quickly right now. I want to get in as much as we can, and I really want to continue this series, if you don't mind.
No,
but okay. So what's in a nutshell now? What is the status in terms of that understanding with the 3,000 plus sheriffs in America?
Well, I wish it was. I wish I could say, oh, it's about 50-50. But it's not. Most of the sheriffs do not know their power, do not understand their role and authority, and that's very evident in what the sheriffs are doing today. I am, though, very proud of the many sheriffs, and there's no number I can put on it, but I would say we have about 10%, maybe 15% of the sheriffs who really are good people, want to do the right thing, and want to keep their word and want to keep their oath. And I will say, I will toot my own horn here. For the last 10 years, we've been taking this to the sheriffs nationwide and to law enforcement, that our ultimate duty is to protect rights. And to quote the Declaration of Independence, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. That is our job. Liberty is the goal. What we have done in law enforcement, we brainwashed every cop and sheriff and chief of police that your job is to kick in doors and to get rid of the drug problem and to force people to comply, to write traffic tickets, to go to court and make people safe, whether they like it or not. And,
exactly.
And this whole thing, back to the coronavirus, this whole thing can only be through persuasion and reason. You cannot force us into this. And anybody who thinks it's okay to give us this ultimatum that you either stay in or you go to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
While they're releasing hardened criminals, at the same time releasing hardened criminals, that kind of stupidity and unconstitutionality absolutely floors me.
Yeah, and I, my feeling is it's probably not. We're not lucky enough that it's just stupidity. There may be a coordinated idea behind it.
Well, I think it's that brainwashing I said, because I think a lot more are good people, but how do you wake them up?
Exactly. So for the sheriffs that aren't really sure, what would you tell them briefly? I mean, just about.
Well, we're starting a program where we're sending emails every week now to about 3/4 of the sheriffs in the country.
Oh, good.
And it starts tomorrow night.
Okay.
And we're trying to wake them up to our awful situation and trying to wake them up. Everybody needs a wake-up call. I got one when I was a cop, and when I didn't start law enforcement as a constitutional cop or person or sheriff, but I was sincere about finding out and studying, and boy, the studying I did really changed my life. It was an epiphany, and I couldn't go back, and I came to a point where I promised myself that I would never be on the wrong side again.
Yeah.
And so that's really where it's at for everybody. I think that if we can wake them up, we can get the good people to if you put the right information in front of the right people, I think they'll do the right thing.
Yeah, and we'll end up by telling sheriffs where to get in touch with you too to join you. The other thing is that if somebody's not called a sheriff, but they're in any part of the world, military or police, what is their real responsibility, regardless of what the laws say in that country or here?
The ultimate goal should be nationwide. It still should be one thing and one thing only, and that's protect liberty of the individual. It would mean protecting Rosa Parks from being arrested. That's what it would mean. Instead, 2 peace officers who arrested her should have, they swore an oath to the Constitution. They should have escorted her home safely and made sure she got home and that no hooded knights harassed her and her family because she refused to sit at the back of the bus. Today, when people are not sitting back in the back of the bus or complying like government or governors think they should, isn't it astonishing that that they have cops that would go along? Well, Thomas Paine wrote about that in his Common Sense and the American Crisis, and he talked about England with its army to enforce its tyranny. Isn't it amazing we have the same thing going on today?
Yeah, it's only got more technology.
We fought a Revolutionary War to stop that, but today, it's okay today because there's some What, is there some sort of magic to your tyranny that it won't be as bad as King George's?
Well, they figured after decades of watching television and going to so-called school in this
You know
country
what?
and others that nobody can think anymore.
If you hit something on the head right there. If you think cops don't get into police work because of television and movies, then you're just here from Mars.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing is if this keeps going the way our rulers want it to, with more and more lockdowns and destruction of the economy, which is much more dangerous than any virus, and people start dying of starvation, and they've got troops coming in from the UN or other armies or foreign troops or anything, what would you say to those troops? The position they're in, they've got strict orders to suppress the people. What do you think a person in that situation should really do?
Well, the individual that they're going after, or
no, the person whose paycheck depends on following the orders to abuse the people.
Well, you're describing why Hitler and Stalin and Lenin were so successful, is because they intimidated the people who were enforcing it.
Right.
And they would go after their families if they didn't do what they were told, and they would fire them and put them in dungeons
and they got the enforcers to go after each other too, just like they're doing with
Correct.
citizens.
Correct. And so that's the thing. We must put people on notice that I will never, if you're in uniform, sir or ma'am, if you're in uniform, you let your supervisors know you will not enforce these laws of dictatorship and these laws of enslavement, and that you will uphold and defend your oath of office. You will uphold and defend principles of liberty, and that has to be first. And you know what? People used to say, well, that cop could get fired. You know what? Do you know what it is? That you're actually paying someone to violate the law and to violate principles of liberty, and you're going to take that and you're going to say that's okay? It's not okay.
Right.
We have enough political prostitutes in Washington, D.C. We don't need any more out here in the countryside of America. Stand for what's right. Stand and stay true to the principles of liberty. Stay true to your country. Stay true to your God, and stay true to your family.
Right.
And do not violate the rights of someone else because somebody paid you.
Yeah, if you find out that you're a hired murderer or a hired person to deceive people and use fear against them and things like that, you might want to reconsider your job.
You're quoting me exactly.
Okay, good. Well, and what about people in, I guess in the military, who really in the U.S. are not even supposed to be domestically deployed at all, like certainly not against the citizens, but they're in a really tight organization that is not very forgiving against disobedience. What's their best course of action?
Keep your oath and keep your word.
Right.
This is just so astonishing to me that that's so hard. Like there's some moral high ground in enforcing an order from a governor that is an executive order. It's not even a law. It's not even an ordinance. It's never been passed.
Right.
It's the governor issuing an order, and you have a sheriff that would actually enforce that when he is a sworn guard of the Republic, and
Right.
he's a sworn guard of the Constitution, and he'll say, oh yeah, I got to enforce this order from the governor, and oh my gosh.
And in this case,
lost it?
the governors are taking orders from the medical cartel that most people think of as unquestionably working in their favor. And that's not necessarily the case. But I think one thing that has to be
clear. Let me ask you one thing real quick there. I know we're in a hurry.
Yeah, sure.
But what happens the next time? Say we reopen, but it comes back. And and now it's even worse than before. Oh, okay. I can't wait for that shutdown.
That's almost guaranteed to happen, actually.
Oh, it is, and I'm telling you, I will not shut down. This
Right.
is not happening again to me or my family, and the reason I'm saying that is because there is no way it should happen in America.
Well, it's not a question of how serious the health problem is. I think
It is not. It doesn't matter.
Right. That needs to be understood.
Correct.
It's like free speech is not just if the speech is not too bad.
No, freedom is only there if we're smooth sailing. Liberty only exists if it's in times of peace and tranquility and smooth sailing. Otherwise, there's no liberty in America.
Yeah.
Anybody want that? Anybody agree with that?
Well, that means you never had any freedom or rights at all.
That is true. It never existed in the first place, if that's the case.
Yeah.
If they can take it away by manipulating whatever, and they can just take it away, they can never take it away. And in times of crisis, it's when the Constitution should apply even more so.
Yeah, so the idea of America that applies to everywhere in the world is this amazing principle that you just trust the free people to come up with the best solution, not the dictators.
Amen.
Right. So what about individual citizens? What's their best role in all this if they're not sheriffs or police or military?
Well, in America, they're in charge. That is one thing that they need to remember. It's we the people. That's the first three words of our Constitution. You're
Right.
in charge, and civil disobedience is absolutely our right. I hope we can continue to keep this peaceful. Oh, and by the way, everybody listening can become a member of the CSPOA.
I think that's important. Yeah.
Yes,
Go ahead.
people being involved with this process, you have to be involved in this. You can't just say, well, I sure hope my sheriff knows what he's supposed to be doing. I sure hope my neighbor cop knows what the law is and what the Constitution is.
Right.
No, that's where we get involved. We must stay vigilant, and we must let them know what we expect, and that we expect to be free, and we expect to be left alone.
Right. And CSPOA is not getting funded by government.
No, we get no grants from the government. It's all private donations, private memberships. That's why we need everybody getting involved in this. We
Right.
want to have the people make this a household name and a household movement.
Yeah. And you know,
there's nothing new with it. We're just going back to the principles that America was founded on.
Exactly. Trying not to have it extinguished. And I think
Right.
people have been miseducated in so many areas. And one is that if anybody needs money, that means they're bad because money's bad. And that's completely ridiculous, you know, that the early church authorities said the same thing. And they said, but, you know, there's a way out. Give us all your money and we'll take care of it and keep it spiritual for you. And we really need to break out of that brainwashing and realize money is a tool and it's a way to get things done. And it needs to go to the people in really good causes like CSPOA. So anybody who can should support them. And if they can't afford a regular membership, maybe they could just donate something, right?
If you could do $10 a month, that would be amazing. And there's a lot of people that do that now.
Yeah.
And the $1,500 that we get in like that a month just isn't even close to covering what.
No, so you need to multiply it by 1,000, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then in that case, you get to contact every sheriff and stay in touch closely, and maybe people in other law enforcement and people in other countries.
We want to set up in every state and maybe have somebody in every county that's making sure they know what's going on, and they're watching local law enforcement, and they're helping their sheriff, working with their sheriff, and teaching their sheriff.
Right, exactly. And then they feel like they're not alone, you know, they're part of a really well-organized group that is all over the place.
Yeah, the sheriffs that we've had really get involved with us are because people contacted them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing that individuals can do. Make friends with your sheriff and with the police and, you know, use the materials that you can get from CSPOA to help them learn what their potential service to humanity really is.
Yes.
And if you had a bunch of money, you could maybe reach out more to people in other countries who have just as urgent situations as we do.
I had a guy that wanted me to come up to Quebec and put on a seminar. And
that was back when it was still legal to travel in America, right?
Yes, true.
Yeah, it's really important for people to wake up now. So if they want to join or donate anything or ask questions or anything like that, learn about CSPOA, what do they do exactly right
Just
now?
go to cspoa.org. Email us. My email is real easy, sheriffmac@hotmail.com. Sheriffmac, 1R, 2S, M-A-C-K, sheriffmac@hotmail.com. Call our number on the website. Get involved. Get a membership. Get a book. Get a copy of my Supreme Court decision, where it actually talks about the crisis of the day and how the Constitution protects us from that. Oh my gosh, we have so much work to do, and we need all of you on board.
Yeah, and if you needed physical help and had to pay people to do that, you'd have money to do it, which would be really...
and we need that. We would really like to have an office instead of in my home. We'd love to have an office at a different location, and maybe 2 or 3 of them across the country, and have paid people working on internet for us and keeping all of that going. And oh my gosh,
right.
That would be so wonderful.
Yeah, there's nothing evil about resources and money. It's just how it's used, and
Correct.
it needs to get into better hands these days. And the time is really an urgent issue right now because things are moving so fast.
Amen.
And so help has to happen right away. And the other thing is, like I said, there are a lot of people in other countries that would like to set up something analogous to CSPOA, even if they don't have the structure legally. They've got the same structure morally and ethically, and maybe they could reach out to law enforcement in their own countries and spread it.
Yeah, I would love to go to other countries and help agencies and law enforcement officials and public servants to do the same thing and start setting this up to where we really establish a system of self-government and independence for everyone.
Yeah. And, people misunderstand the concept of nationalism, which the current president has talked about a lot, and the media tries to make it sound like, oh, you don't care about the other countries, but it's exactly the opposite. It's saying, look, each country, be independent, make your own country a really great place for everybody to live and be free. And if you do that, you're an inspiration to everybody else. It's really
nationalism is not
concept.
isolationism. They're not the same, but they try to make it.
No, but it's maintaining your own sovereignty and independence and cooperating with the other ones who do the same thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So things could still turn out well if people, drop the excuses and use every minute as if the time was valuable.
That's right.
Try to make a good impact. Okay, well, I really, if you're not too tired of it, I want to do more, at our opportunities. And
absolutely, let's do. I'll spend 12 hours a day doing this, and lately I've just about been doing that. So
yeah, I can imagine.
No,
okay.
This is what I've been called to do. This is what I love to do. It's what's right.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'll keep it going. So, all right. Thanks for joining us, and I appreciate that it worked out, and we'll talk to you very shortly.
All right. Thanks so much. See you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay, you guys, that was Richard Mack. I hope you realize that was very, valuable and honor to have him show up. I really appreciate it. And everybody is in a position to have a massive impact on what's going on in the world. I just think there's so many aspects of conditioning that we need to break free of. And one of the biggest ones is that we're totally helpless victims. And we have all these things that we can cite as reasons why we're so helpless. And that's not exactly accurate, to put it mildly. We have unlimited potential unless we believe that we don't. And one of the great values of what Sheriff Mack is doing is he's just one guy that happened to have a job as a sheriff and in police forces before that. But he didn't say, well, I just have to follow what everybody else does and follow rules whether they're ethical or not, and follow laws in America whether they're constitutional or not, obey somebody just because they're an official authority even if they're committing crimes. And he found out, that's actually not true, and he educated himself, and he's just being an example to us. And no matter what role that you're in society right now, you can do the same thing. And if you become aware, then it goes into everything that you say to everybody, all of your actions, the kind of example that you are to everybody around you, and you can do that like right now, whenever you want to. If you have the physical resources, consider going to CSPOA and becoming a member. You don't have to be a sheriff or anything, or a policeman or policewoman. You can just be a regular citizen and become a member of CSPOA. Or if you can't do that, donate $1 a month or whatever you want to and can do. It's a really worthy cause. Educate yourself, become friends with your sheriff or your police officers in your area. Don't rebuke them. That, then they have to defend against you, but make friends with them. That gives you much more power to make a good impression. And remember that we've got Sunday shows every week that are supposed to be educational and informative, and those are coming up tomorrow and every Sunday. They're free to the public, 4:30 or 6 o'clock Pacific and 9 o'clock Eastern U.S. time, available worldwide. Planetary Healing Club is for people that want to get more involved, not just on the outside activities, which I assume you're going to do anyway, but working on yourself. Because if you do that, whatever you're doing in the outside, whether it's with your family or friends or people at work, or if you're a young person, other kids or anything, what you say conveys what you are, your own consciousness at the time. So the same words can have no impact, a negative impact, or a positive impact, depending on what you develop in yourself. And what I'm encouraging everybody to do is learn the truth about the health situation, not what you're told, that you need to be on drugs your whole life and have your organs cut out and the usual stuff, but the real health information that's being banned right now. Find it and learn it, apply it, make yourself immune to these, situations of contagion, so that, because in general, if you're in really good shape, it's a totally different situation at any age, any chronological age. And then start doing your internal work and changing your whole awareness of who you are. And that's what we get into in Planetary Healing Club. If you want to join us, you're personally invited. That happens, a live interactive meeting half an hour after this one ends. And the portal to that is at it's at planetaryhealingclub.com. And you might even get in today if you're fast, but there are small dues for that, not because we're evilly trying to get money and, do some scammers. It's not like that at all. My attempt is to live everything we're talking about, correct our mistakes. Nobody starts out, brilliant and perfect that I know of anyway, but just analyze yourself and see what you can correct physically and on other levels. And the small dues that for people that want to be involved in that go to our nonprofit, and they keep us going. If you want to see us stay on the air, it would really be appreciated to donate something to us if you can at the donate button at lostartsradio.com. or at lostartsresearchinstitute.org. There's donate buttons on both of those. Or join us on subscribestar.com/lostartsradio. And subscribe to our new channel at brighteon.com. That's brighteon.com/channel/lostartsradio. That's a non-censoring video platform that you'll find all of our posted videos on as well. It's a good place. And we're on many audio-only platforms too, some of which you can listen to on a phone. And we're trying to be out there. Even if we start getting knocked off the major platforms, you can find us at Brighteon and at lostartsradio.com. So thanks for being with us and for being patient while I tried to get a hold of Sheriff Mack. I'm glad it worked out. I hope things are going well for you in the midst of this intense crisis. Remember that situations like this can lead to really great leaps in consciousness and awareness, and clarifying what it is that you want to do with whatever time remains in your life right now. Remember that when you get to the end of your life, you realize suddenly, wow, it's like 10 minutes. And it's better if you realize that before, wherever you are now, because your next hour is not guaranteed. Make the best use of it. Respect and help everybody around you as much as you can. Even the bad guys need to be waked up, not hated. It's a whole different frequency, and it changes your life. So if you want to join us to get into that more deeply, planetaryhealingclub.com. And otherwise, either way, we'll see you for the next show and hopefully tomorrow night for the Sunday show too. Take care of yourself so you can be of more use to the rest of the world. It's the way to do it. And we'll see you next time.